If you've been scrolling through endless specs sheets, watching side-by-side footage, and still feel a knot in your stomach wondering whether the camera you're eyeing will actually deliver on set, this review is here to cut through the noise. I've spent the last week testing the Nikon ZR full-frame 6K cinema camera in a short indie shoot, a low-light interview, and a handheld run-and-gun piece, and I'm going to tell you exactly where it shines and where it lets you down. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the ZR feels like a hybrid between Nikon's DSLR heritage and a RED-style cinema rig. The promise of 6K 60 RAW, dual base ISO, and more than 15 stops of dynamic range is a big draw, but the real question is whether those numbers translate into something you can actually use without a crew of engineers. In my hands, the camera's 4-inch articulating touchscreen, which hits 1000 nits and covers DCI-P3, becomes the primary control surface. The menu layout is still Nikonish, lots of nested pages, but the cinema mode shortcuts pull the most critical settings, ISO, shutter, white balance, onto the front screen, letting you dial changes while you're looking through the viewfinder or the LCD. It's not a single button solution, but after a few minutes you stop hunting for the right submenu and just swipe. Autofocus confidence is a common pain point for creators moving from mirrorless stills to video, and the ZR's hybrid AF system does a respectable job. In daylight, the face detect and eye detect modes lock onto subjects within 2 frames, even when you're moving the camera on a gimbal. The tricky part shows up in low-light scenes where the dual base ISO really matters. The camera offers a base ISO of 640 and a second base of 4000, giving you a clean window before noise starts to creep in. In a dimly lit bar test, the 4000 ISO setting kept skin tones natural while the background stayed smooth, and the AF still found faces without hunting, something I've seen falter on competing full-frame cinema bodies. If you're planning night interiors or dusk exteriors, that dual base approach is a practical advantage. Stabilization is another area where the ZR tries to make a claim. The built-in 7.5 stop IBIS works with any lens you mount, and during a handheld walkthrough of a city market, the footage stayed buttery even when I deliberately shook the camera. The trick is that the sensor shift works best with lenses that have a reasonable balance point. Very heavy telephoto lenses still benefit from a rig, but for run-and-gun kits, you can often leave the gimbal at home. The result is a lighter bag and quicker setup, which is a big win for solo operators who can't afford a full stabilization rig. Lens ecosystem is a classic Nikon concern. The Z mount has grown rapidly, and the ZR can use the whole range, from the 2470 f/2.8 to the 70200 f/2.8 VR. What matters on a cinema camera is how quickly you can switch lenses and maintain focus consistency. Because the ZR uses the same mount as Nikon's mirrorless line, you can pull from a wealth of third-party adapters and still retain autofocus. In practice, I swapped from a prime 35mm to a fast zoom 2470 in under a minute, and the focus motor stayed calibrated. The downside is that the very latest cinema-grade lenses from other brands, like Zeiss CP.3s, need an adapter that adds a fraction of a second to focus lock. If you already own Nikon glass, you're golden. If you're building a system from scratch, expect a short learning curve with adapters. Battery confidence is often overlooked until you're on a day shoot. The ZR ships with a high-capacity ENEL18C battery, and in my tests a full charge lasted about 2.5 hours of continuous 6K recording, which is comparable to other full-frame cinema cameras. The inclusion of a spare battery in the box is a nice safety net, but you'll still need at least one extra for longer days. The camera also supports USB-C power-in, so you can run off of lock if you have that set up. Just remember the battery indicator is tucked in the lower left of the touchscreen, so you need to glance away from the frame occasionally. Now, who should actually consider buying the ZR? If you're a hobbyist who's already comfortable with Nikon's mirrorless stills lineup and you want to step up to 6K without buying a dedicated red or Blackmagic cinema rig, the ZR gives you a credible path. Its dual-base ISO and strong IBIS let you shoot in a variety of lighting conditions without a full lighting kit, and the built-in audio system 32-bit float recording with selectable tracks covers most indie documentary needs. It also ships with a 64GB card, which is enough for a few minutes of raw 6K footage, giving you a starter workflow that doesn't require you to buy media immediately. On the other hand, if you're a working creator whose business relies on delivering high-end cinema footage to clients, there are reasons to skip. The menu depth, while improved, can still feel cumbersome when